I want to take today's episode and just try to encourage you in young adult ministry. I had the privilege to be at a conference a few weeks back doing multiple training sessions on nothing but young adult ministry and college ministry. So it gave me the privilege to talk to many people that are already engaged in young adult ministry or are thinking about starting a ministry. And I kind of found a commonality in many of those conversations, and that also extends back to some of the retreats we're doing and the conversations I've had with people over the past years. And it's this almost discouragement mentality in young adult ministry. I hear this often. We only have a few. We only have a couple. There's only one young adult in our church. There's none. We would love to start something, but there's just no young adults in our church. They're in and out. They don't seem to be faithful. They're not open, are they, to hearing truth and to growing? These are just some common thoughts and words I hear in conversations. And I just want to take this episode to encourage you that though you may just have a few, though they may be in and out, though you want to start one, but there's none there, that you can have an active, fruitful young adult college ministry there in your church. Number one, I just want to say to you, don't quit. You are absolutely essential. You are so needed in this ministry. And I understand when things get hard, when you feel like you're not seeing visible fruit, so you feel like maybe it's time to move on to another ministry or move on somewhere else or fold this ministry up. But can I say to you, that is not what needs to happen. You are absolutely essential and needed. And I'd like to communicate this: young adult or college ministry is not a junior varsity ministry. It's not the stepping stone to something greater or better. College ministry, young adult ministry is something you can give and devote your entire life to. And that's what we need. We need people to treat this like this is their life call and to realize that this ministry is so vital and so important that it's something you can devote all your energy, passion, excitement, and just give it all you've got. And many times that's what it takes to begin seeing these ministries to move forward as they grow and so forth. And so secondly, don't base your effectiveness on your attendance sheet. Like I said, many of the times the conversations I hear is we only have a couple, we only have one, they're in and out. And so don't base your effectiveness of this ministry on your attendance sheet. Don't confuse success with the rewards of success. What do I mean? If God wants you if God wants you in young adult ministry, that's where you're at, then you'll never be more successful than where you're at right now. Because success is not based on fruit. That's up to God. Though we desire to see fruit and to see growth and numerical growth, ultimately that's up to God. But you and I will be deemed stewards, or our success will be based on us fulfilling and following God's call on our life. And if He wants you to be in that young adult ministry, and you have 2 young adults, you are never more successful than you will be if you had 100 young adults. And so your success is not based on the number of young people who show up. Someone who has 2 young adults week after week can be just as successful as someone who has 100 or 150 young adults. That's how God views it. And then number 3, remember this always: you are battling against the statistics of this demographic. You hear often anywhere from 52 to 63% of born-again freshmen who walk into college after 4 years will completely reject their faith. Think of that. Then you hear the statistics many times over, anywhere from 60 to 70, as high as 80% of 18 to 22-year-olds who have faithfully attended church will stop attending during that age stage. So understanding that these are statistics that you are battling against, we have to keep that in mind. But also think about this: what about the 36% that stayed in church, and the 48% who did not reject their faith? Many times we look at the statistics and go, oh man, this is where we're going. But what about those who stayed in church? What about those who did not reject their faith? May you and I focus on the positive aspect in these areas, in the stats. And so focusing on the positive will help us to decrease the negative side. So many times we get caught up in the negative. and talking about how bad it is. And that just brings what? It breeds discouragement, right? And so when we can understand, yes, that's the reality, but look, here is the positive of it. There are a great group of young people who are staying in church. There are a great group of young people who are not rejecting their faith, and they're wanting to serve, and they're wanting to grow, and they're needing a place to get involved, a place to plug into. And that's where you and I having these young adult ministries and college ministries is absolutely vital to their faith and to them growing and them having a connection point and so forth. And so fourthly, I would say this: focus on spiritual growth while working on numerical growth. So focus where? Don't focus on the numerical growth. Focus on the spiritual growth and let the numerical growth be a byproduct of that spiritual growth. You see, major on spiritual growth and minor on entertainment. One young adult leader that we work with said this when I was talking to him in a conversation. He said, focus on the spiritual growth of the class or ministry. It's easy to assume that a strong young adults ministry thrives on coffee and fun activities, but they will always find something better. He said this: we say they go where they grow. Spend more time on your teaching and lessons than on your activity planning. Focus on connecting people with God more than connecting them with each other. Now, we understand connection points and community is vital for this age group, but we have to understand we need to first primarily work at connecting them with God, focus on their spiritual growth, because as they grow and they catch the vision and they see the mission that God has, they're going to go out into the community. They're going to participate with you in outreach into your local campus, to the community, whatever. They're going to invite their friends. They're going to get excited. And guess what? Your group is not only going to grow spiritually, which is most important, your group is going to grow numerically as God begins to give the increase. And then number 5, as you think about growing your young adult ministry, and maybe you do have just a couple, and there's nothing wrong with that. When we began our first young adult ministry 9 years ago, we started with 1 or 2 young adults. And it was that, and every week, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 5, 7, 2, 3, and it just bounced all around until God continued growing the ministry. When we started our campus ministry at Appalachian State University, we began meeting with 3 students, and God would grow that over 7 years to see an average of 40 to 50 students each week in Bible study, a high of 90 students. We started a ministry at Western Carolina. We began with 3 students meeting faithfully. We recently just kicked off a meeting, or a campus ministry at Pitt Community College, and we began with 2 students, and we met faithfully week after week. We've seen 2, 3, 3, 2, 4, 5, and so God will build the ministry. And I hate for us to get caught up in the numbers. I mean, we want to see tangible growth. I understand that because we see our efforts, we see fruit from our efforts, and we like to see that. I'm the same way, but we have to remember what God has called us to, and remember how God deems success, and it's not based on our numbers. And so if we're going to grow our ministry, we're going to have to go where young adults are. So yes, we're going to focus on spiritual growth, but we're also going to have to go because God has commanded us in that spiritual growth to go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. And it's interesting that 88% of high school graduates will attend some form of higher education. So most churches will have a community college, a private college, a state college in their town to where you can go and actively engage and reach young adults. If you do not have a college campus within maybe 30 minutes of your church, you still can find them in the community. They're working at stores. They're involved in the community in different aspects. And so you have to put on your young adult glasses, and you have to have something that you can invite them to, a connection point, whether it's your weekly Bible study, whether it's some activities, whatever it is that you can invite them to bring them to that connection point. Do not plan on building your young adult ministry from the graduates of the youth ministry. So many times this can be the default. We just wait for them to step up into our young adult ministry, but we cannot do this, especially with the statistics, because they're a reality that many of them do drop out. Many of them will leave and go to college and then come back. There's that transition, right? You have a certain group of young adults during the school year. You have another group of young adults during the summer and the winter break. And so it's just a reality of the ministry, and we have to navigate that. But do not plan on building your young adult ministry on the graduates from youth group. Go and find where young adults are in your community. Go to the college campus, establish a ministry there, or establish some outreach points. We can help you with that. And then lastly, I would just say this right where we started: do not quit. That is I think that's the default. It's a hard ministry. We're not seeing tangible fruit at first, and so we just want to move on to something else. We want to quit. And I can ask you, please don't throw the towel in. This is not a junior varsity ministry. This is a varsity ministry that you can dedicate your life to. You are so needed. How else are we going to reach our younger generation? How else are we going to flip those statistics, which I believe we can do? How else are we going to flip those statistics to where more are not rejecting their faith and more are staying in church than are leaving if we don't have workers like you who are passionate, who are encouraged and desire to reach this age group? And so many times I think the people are out there that I'm talking to, they do have a burden. They do see the need, and I'm so thankful for that. And so I want to try to encourage you, and also want to try for us to encourage each other. So let's continue, one, to encourage each other. If you know other people who work in young adult ministry, encourage them. Send them a text. Talk to them. Find out what's going on with them. Share ideas. We do that often with different people we know in young adult ministry, and it helps me because I don't know everything. So I like to pull ideas and thoughts and see what's working here, what's not working there. So let's continue to encourage each other. Let's continue to reach the most strategic demographic in the church. This is the church of not tomorrow. This is the church of today, and it's vital that you and I reach these young people, get them plugged in the church because they have an energy, they have an excitement about themselves. Paul even said in 1 Corinthians chapter 7 that they have a spiritual advantage of serving God just because of the season of life that they're in. And so you and I seize upon that, and let's build a group that is growing spiritually, that will reach out beyond the borders of the church, reach out in the community, reach out in our state, and can I be honest, reach out through missions across our country, across our world, to get the gospel out and to reach people where their needs are in our country. So let's continue to make a difference in the lives of these young people. Let's continue to see young adults serving God and making an impact in this world. And so let's continue, regardless of how many young adults we have, focusing on that spiritual growth and let God add numerically as He sees fit.